Good evening. Welcome to the February 2025 meeting of the Historic Preservation Board. I'm Tom Combs, the chairperson. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the approval of the minutes, which were from December. We didn't have a January meeting, but the minutes from December had been sent out to you. Were there any comments, edits, corrections to those minutes? If not, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
And a second. And any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We have three applicants with us tonight. First one on our list is 2082 5 Mile Line Road. Samantha Carbone and Artist Mangione, representing the Straight A Homework House.
If one of you guys wants to come up to the microphone and just talk us through what you're proposing to do.
Sure. Is this the microphone?
Yep, that's the one. Thank you.
Introduce yourself.
Well, hi, everybody. My name is Artist Mangione Lindley. I've been a teacher for 30 years, and for 17 of those years, I've run a Straight A Homework House in the village of Pittsford. We see students from all over Monroe County, but predominantly they'll come from Pittsford, Brighton, that area. But there have been kids who have been coming from Penfield, Webster, Fairport, and this seemed like an absolutely beautiful location and ideal for our growing business. We provide academic support for students in all grades, and it's either a one-on-one setting, or we do have some homework club that's really kind of fun and unique. And we have a teacher for every subject, and they can rotate through all the teachers and get everything that they need in one-stop shopping. We envision it as a place that kids will come to after school, and then they might go get a slice of Mark's Pizza, or they might go get Starbucks. But they will really make this more of a village feel and really enjoy the opportunity to be able to walk over from the nearby schools and also get some academic support in the world that's changed a bit. Our plan for our sign is similar to the one that we have in the village of Pittsford right now. I believe in our application I included a photograph of that so you could see it live and in person. We tried to keep it simple, but something that you could identify easily from the road and just let folks know that we're there. We're all certified teachers. We all have a master's or a PhD. These are not folks I just pulled off the street. They have all taught in our local schools. And we hope to keep the sign simple and appropriate. I will say this, I love that there are rules and that there is a preservation board. I am very much in favor of the work that you do and would like to continue to be a supportive member of this group.
Oh, thank you. So these are the colors you're talking about that we see here. Okay. Any comments, questions? So the freestanding one is of a size that is acceptable to the town ordinances, et cetera. And the one that's going to be on the building will be whereabouts?
It will be on the back of this photograph, right? So there's a separate entrance from the parking lot, and that's for folks who are pulling into the parking lot. Perhaps they've gone to the diner next door, or perhaps they've just gotten their hair cut at the beautiful salon, and now they're going to come through the parking lot and into our space. They're going to need to be able to identify it from the parking lot, just so they can know where they are. So that'll be on the back, near the rear entrance of the building. Yep. Okay. Yep, there was a sign there once upon a time, right there. Yep, same idea.
All right. So the size and the positioning are not, they're not for us, but the appearance is what we're discussing.
I mean, the size and the having two signs have all been run through town code and meet the code requirements.
Okay. Any questions? All right, then do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Motion and a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion to accept?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous, so thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Great, and I'll follow up with you.
Thank you very much.
Of course, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, our second applicant is Brianna Ferranti. Hello.
How are you?
Good?
Good. My name's Brianna. Are you ready for me?
Yep,
All
we're
My
ready for
name's
you.
Brianna Ferranti, and I've lived in the Penfield area my whole life. I've done aesthetics and cosmetology type work for 20 years, and I've narrowed down my niche to specializing in eyebrows, and I want to grow my business, so I will be opening a business at the address I gave you, 21185 Mile Line Road. And this is my proposal for my sign.
Well, we've approved signs there before, over the years for other tenants in that building. So is it that section just above the window that will be covered with the,
Correct, yes.
it'll be black and white?
Yes.
Okay. Questions for Brianna?
You currently have a business in Penfield now, or a business?
Like I was renting actually in the salon right next door,
Okay, gotcha.
so, yeah.
I like your sign.
Thank you.
Questions? Motion for acceptance?
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
A second.
And a second? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous again. Brianna, thank you for coming in.
Thank you, and I appreciate
We-
you all. Thank
We
you.
appreciate you coming in.
Great, thank
Thanks
you.
for all your help with the
No problem,
application.
and I'll follow up with you tomorrow, okay?
Wonderful.
Great, thank you.
Chairman, before we continue, I would ask that you shut this microphone so that
Anyone in particular?
just a reminder for everyone.
Okay, everyone is reminded. Okay, our third applicant is for a new roofing to 2048 5 Mile Line Road.
I thought they were coming, but it doesn't appear that they're here. So I'll run through the application. So we received a roof permit through the building department. I let them know that they are in the historic district, and this is a material change, so it qualifies it to have a certificate of appropriateness. So I went and took pictures of the site today, so you guys could see it in real time. So you see it's a uniquely shaped roof. My understanding is that right now there is asphalt over top, but underneath there is cedar shake shingles. The proposal is to remove all of the layers of shingles currently on the house. I did go in person and they are deteriorating. You can see in this photo that they are in pretty bad condition. So the proposal is to remove, I believe, 2 layers of asphalt shingles plus the cedar shake underneath with a new asphalt shingle. They did send me the website that has the link to what the new shingles are as far as color. However, they are going to be applied in a way that still represents this roof line and the same look as what the asphalt shingles do now. It's already been covered, the cedar shake, so in its current condition, we can't even see it. And I think that's it from the application.
All right, well, this is a house that a couple of us are very familiar with from going way back, and I have to tell you, I think those were there when we were kids, those shingles. It's amazing that they've lasted this long. And I went by their house, by it also, and they're in pretty bad shape. Visually, you can see that. I'm not familiar with what GAF means in the roofing.
So it's my understanding that it's just a type of shingle.
It's just the name of the company.
Yeah, yeah.
Manufacturer.
That's the company name?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's manufacturer.
Do we know, maybe this is on
I think it's on.
Okay. Do we know why they're proposing, because I am pretty familiar with GAF, all their different lines of shingle, why they're proposing slate line? And I'm only asking just because, so the original roof was cedar shake and it's still there. And then this one is a odd shape of asphalt shingle, which is not even available anymore, so they couldn't replace in kind. But slate line is meant to, I'm putting air quotes here, meant to look like slate, which didn't exist on this house. So I'm just kind of wondering if the high-definition asphalt shingles that look, again, quotation marks, look like, can look a little bit more like cedar shingle with their various shapes, and they kind of overlap each other, if that might be more appropriate. But I don't know what the rest of our board thinks, or if it doesn't matter because what's there is not great and they're replacing
Right.
asphalt for asphalt. I'm not sure how much we want to get into which of the asphalt shingle lines they're using.
I will say that this is an assumption, of course, but it's possible that the GAF shingles are being proposed because it's just by, a popular roofing contracting company, Highland Contractors. As far as I know, they don't do preservation work. So that's probably, it's probably what they most commonly use, would be my guess. It probably has a good lifespan. And according to the pictures, the roof is deteriorating pretty poorly, so they probably want to install something that will last them a bit longer. That would be my guess. Of course, I don't know for sure.
Well, do we want to go back and suggest that that we're fine with the replacement of the roof, but we would like them to look at the shaping of the,
Well, so the difference between it is, so slate line, what they're proposing, and again, this type of house could have also originally had a slate roof. That would also be normal. This one happened to have cedar shingle, but this style of home could have just as easily have had a slate roof. So I don't think it's necessarily inappropriate in this case. But slate line, if you see the picture of the shingles, they're like a little bit larger, that they more mimic kind of the shape of a slate tile than your regular asphalt shingle tile. And then the high-definition architectural shingle is the same thing. It's asphalt shingle, just like this is, but it's the ones that kind of, I would say, are even more popular than this, that kind of overlap a little bit and almost look like cedar shake, which people say that when they want to use it to replace cedar shake. So that's my only question, is just would it make more sense or be more historically sensitive, even though asphalt isn't the historic material, to use one that would look more like the shape of the historic shingle than having a slate look to it. They're the same shingle, and I believe they have the same life and all that. So I don't know. I don't know that I have a major preference one way or the other, because this style and age of home could have also had a slate roof on it. So it's not historically inappropriate necessarily.
all right, well, then we'll go ahead and, Chuck, did you have?
Could you go back to the picture of the house, please? Do you know, Shannon, are they going to wrap the eaves the way that's done? Because that seems like that's a significant.
Yes, they did make
architectural-
note of that in the building permit application, that they will be wrapping it to make it have the same appearance as it does now.
And they're going to do that with an asphalt shingle?
I guess so. Yeah.
It's the only roof I've ever seen that has that curled look to it. It's very interesting. Okay, do we have a motion?
So, just before we go to the vote, I mean, is that the same cost as the other one? Or are they different prices?
I actually don't know, and I'm wondering if this material might be easier to wrap because it lays a little bit flatter. So I'm thinking now, looking at this roof, that could be why they're proposing this versus the roofing company probably uses the other one more. But I'm wondering now, because of how the shingle lays, this slate line might be easier to lay and get that curve of the roof line. So with everything I just threw out there, I guess I would put out a motion to approve their application.
Okay. And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any further discussion, comments, questions? Okay, well, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. It's approved. All right. All right, we have some informational items to discuss here. The Clark Road Barn update. I think we've covered this from the last time. I don't think there's anything new, but the barn recommendation, which was to essentially dismantle it, but save the larger beams, label them, and set them aside someplace that's safe to, in the event that we could reconstruct the building somewhere else at a different time. And that's moving forward now, as I understand it.
Sort of. So actually, the committee suggested selective demolition, which was just to save some of the materials. So actually to demolish the barn and save like the beams first specifically, and then to store them and possibly use them for another project in the future, either as a piece in the Clark House Lodge event space project or for something else in the future. So this information was brought to the town board since we last met. And the town board suggested putting the project out to bid and getting some information on pricing, and then go from there, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. All right, that's the barn update. The Clark House update, I haven't heard anything new on that.
So last night, the town board awarded 5 contracts for the project. So construction is planned to begin in the spring and will be completed in fall of 2026. The construction will have progress meetings throughout to check in to make sure that everything is being met as the project was approved by the Historic Preservation Board and by the town board. We will also be having historic check-ins with myself and Jennifer Ahrens from Barrow to make sure that all of the historical aspects are being met throughout the construction process. Of course, if anything comes up throughout the process that changes, we run into issues, whatever may happen, it will be brought back to the town board and to this board as necessary. The building permit was submitted, and we're actively reviewing it in the building department.
I had a question, Shannon. We never, at least I never saw the construction drawings that talked about what they were preserving. We talked about it and made lists, but we never saw a bid package. Is it?
Yeah, so I just got the huge roll of construction plans last week. So what I can do is I can pull out the parts that have to do with the rehabilitation and send it to you guys. But I will be reviewing them to make sure that all of the list of things that we went over are included. There's nothing out of the realm of what we talked about.
Yeah, if you could do that, I think that'd be helpful.
Sure, I can
Thank you.
definitely do that.
Okay.
Excuse me. There is a proposed new Certificate of Appropriateness application.
Yes.
That was in what you handed us today?
Yes, that was in the packet of what I gave everybody. So this is something I've been working on for a while, as I've been the liaison to the board for about 3 years now. Something that I've noticed is that residents have trouble with our application. It's a little bit confusing. It doesn't actually provide a lot of information for the applicant or for the board. So what I did is I went through applications from surrounding municipalities, took some of the information, took notes on what they included, what they didn't, and really put it all together in a much more comprehensive application. This is helpful for the applicant to know what to expect. It's helpful for the board to give you guys more information. So it breaks down the applicant information, property owner information, contractor, what the type of the project is, and then it goes through scope of work, all the improvements, just really getting into the detail of what the work is, and then the preservation goals and how they're going to abide by historic preservation codes and regulations. And then we also have a list of materials that we need them to submit for each application. And then at the end, I do have a whole section about the Historic Preservation Board review process laid out for them so that they know when they need a certificate of appropriateness, when they don't, what our review process is like, how to submit, what happens if they're approved, and what happens if they're denied. Just all into one succinct application. The other nice thing about this, too, is that thank you to Carrie Ivers, because she was able to make this into a fillable PDF as well. So applicants can actually just type in all the information online and send it to me directly instead of having to print it out, fill it out, scan it, send it back to me. So this is a huge, huge update that is much more comprehensive, and this is also way more comparable to what other towns are doing. So this is now on the town website, and this is the new application that you guys will see from now on in meetings.
Well, good. That's all I can say is thank you very much for taking that on. I certainly took no ownership in the old one, so if this is going to
Yeah.
be smoother.
As far as I could tell, that old application was the original application from when the board was established 50
And it
years ago.
served its purpose.
So it was more than overdue for some updates. So hopefully, obviously, I'll get feedback from applicants, if there's any issues or if they have any questions or concerns, but we'll make edits as we need. Otherwise, I reviewed this with many people on town staff and made corrections and edits as we needed.
Good. Well, thank you again.
Yeah.
Okay, the 2024 in review, no, we just handed that. I don't know, do you want to go through that, or?
Probably just quickly, this is something that I started doing at the end of every year, just to kind of keep tabs on all of the things that we do as a board, and make sure that, we're keeping track of all the awesome things that you guys are doing and all the work that we're putting in. So the review just goes into detail about who's on the board, town board liaison, staff liaison, town historian. For the first time in a while, we have no open spots on the board. We got 2 new board members, Megan and Nick, who is not here tonight. We had 10 meetings last year. We had the board's 500th meeting. We amended the town code for the criteria of approval for certificates of appropriateness. We definitely were super involved in the Clark House projects, the Clark Road Barn, and some other projects in the Four Corners District. The board awarded 10 certificates of appropriateness, and then I just go into a little more detail about the Clark House project. And those were the big points in 2024.
That's good. I think it is important to document what happened during the year.
Yeah, after a little while, they all kind of mix together. So
Yeah.
it's nice to have a review for all of our records.
Very good. I'll take another look at it, but I can't think of anything that you've left out. But okay. Goals for 2025.
Yep, and this is similar to ones from last year. A lot of them are continuing projects. We'll just keep in mind, the historical marker sign project restoration. That's something that's been on our radar for a few years, still trying to kind of work out the details of that, something that's been on our minds and we really want to get on top of. Last year we didn't hold an event, but we will hopefully do another one this year. We are hopefully still going to give out the Jeff Crane Award for 2024, and we would like to give out another one for 2025 if someone qualifies. As we talked about in some previous meetings, we're seeking out a new historic resources survey for the town. We'll be applying for the Preserve New York grant to get some grant money to pay for that project, and that project will then lead into a lot of other sub-projects with reorganizing the historic districts, possibly designated new districts and individual properties. We are also going to be looking into developing design guidelines. As always, we are looking to create more incentives for homeowners and business owners with historic properties. We already made the Certificate of Appropriateness application more user-friendly and more thorough. And as always, we're continuing to educate residents, encourage community engagement, and working through the Clark House project and the Clark Road Barn projects.
Excellent.
Lots of stuff.
Yep. Well, I look forward to having another good year in the Preservation Board. Thank you for all that, Shannon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we didn't have any other items on the agenda, but in the meantime, Kevin Berry, who's our town board liaison, received a rather lengthy letter from Jim Eldred with a long list of comments related to the status of the Clark House and also the barn. So Kevin, you want to kind of bring us up to date on what you've heard and seen and done?
Sure. So the town board received this letter from Mr. Jim Eldred, and he's actually in attendance this evening. He spoke at last night's town board meeting. And basically, he was concerned about the lodge and the Clark House being connected and felt that it should be separated, which I know is something that was previously discussed. He was hoping to hold off the award of the contracts last night for 30 days to kind of put a pause and consider this. That did not happen. I think that with all the time that has passed regarding the Clark House and the project, that folks didn't want to delay it any longer. However, I did want to ensure that this concern was addressed and that other concerns brought up were also addressed. There was another resident who questioned whether it is normal to add on a building such as the lodge to a historic property according to historic preservation standards. So that was another question. And then I know that it was also brought up that the Clark House was going to be used for storage, and I think that was something that was discussed in the past but is no longer the case. So basically, I wanted to bring this before the board so that they could address some of those concerns.
Yeah.
So.
Well, excuse me. Not sure where to start. I know a lot of these things we did discuss with Mr. Eldred in December. We talked about the massiveness of the newer building and how we had toned that down, we think very significantly from what the original proposals were, as well as how it's attached to the old house, so that there was as much distinction as there could be between the old house, which stands by itself, and if you look at even the way the new one's going to be, if you're standing out on Clark Road, the houses will look very nice and look quite massive, and then of course there is a structure behind it. We talked about the uses of the house, and there is not a plan for it, except that it is not intended to be storage, which was talked about at one point. We did talk about the need for, if it is ultimately, the old house is ultimately used for, say, small meetings of different groups of different kinds, they're going to need restrooms. So the attachment is directly to the structure where there are restrooms, which I think is rather important to be able to use it. Any other things come to mind from the board members? Some of the things that were raised in that letter that, of course, the timing of it was, was of concern. The process is pretty far along. It's very far along at this point, and so to stop it for additional review wasn't, apparently the town board didn't think that was appropriate.
Megan, with your experience with historic preservation, could you address the idea of attaching a structure such as the lodge to the back of a historic building like this?
Sure, and you had mentioned that there was another comment about this being appropriate with the preservation standards. So with the standards for rehabilitation is what you typically apply to these projects. These were a set of 10 guidelines set by the National Park Service, as most of us know. And it's pretty much trickled down what people use at the state and local levels as well when you're looking at historic preservation projects. So when it comes to additions are allowed, and I think that's one of the common misconceptions from people, is that if you have a historic property, you can't add on to it. The standard from the Park Service just says that the addition would be complementary to the historic property, and that it's basically that it won't overwhelm the property, that it's not larger than. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the addition can't be in square footage larger than the historic property. It just means, roof line wise, it needs to be lower than the historic property. It should be maintained within, in this case, I would say if you're looking at the front of the Clark house, that the addition not be expanding way past the side elevations of the Clark house, which I don't think it is.
I don't think it is.
And I think that was all part of the process before I joined this board. I know that you guys had worked through a lot of that, bringing down the roof line and kind of pulling in the walls so that it didn't do that. And so the general thought is that from the public right-of-way, you wouldn't necessarily be able to see the addition. Now, it can be a little bit more difficult with a property like this because it's on a corner, so of course you're going to see it from one street. But I think those are just kind of conditions you have to think about. So, from a preservation perspective, federal all the way down to local level, additions on historic properties are acceptable. I think in this case, this board did a lot of work with the architects and the town to make sure that the materials were compatible but differentiated from. So, yeah.
Anything else?
I mean, that covered the major points. I think that, you can never satisfy everybody, and that there's not going to be a consensus on what should have been done with the Clark house or the Clark barn or any of this at all. But, I did feel that this was actually a fascinating letter in a lot of ways, and I thought that it was worthy of addressing. And, it was a fairly prominent part of the meeting last night, so I really wanted to bring it back to the board as the liaison, so.
I think it's also really important to note, especially for people who, from an outside perspective, have just been getting updates here and there, that this board, the town board, and the construction company that was hired to, the architecture firm that was hired to work on the construction drawings also were consulted by Barrow Architecture, specifically Jennifer Ahrens, and they specialize in historic preservation. That is most of what they do. They are very, very good at it. They're very thorough. They looked through all of these plans, all of these iterations. They made a lot of recommendations to make this project conform with preservation standards while also still making this a useful new event space for the town to use instead of having a building sit there and deteriorate like it's been.
I might also add, too, I think some confusion might come from the wording that can be used when we talk about preservation sometimes. So I know a lot of people might wonder, well, I want a restoration of the Clark house, but this project's not a restoration, it's a rehabilitation. So restoration is when you're taking a property back to a specific time period, meaning, like interior, exterior would all have to look like it did in, if we were restoring the Clark house to its original appearance, everything would have to be 1832. You couldn't have anything that wasn't. Even interior furnishing pieces would have to be that. And I don't think that was the intent of the town in any way, was to have, a historic museum there. So in this case, it's a rehabilitation, meaning you're using the historic building, you're retaining what you can, but you're making it viable in the 21st century.
Yeah. Yeah, the deterioration had gone too far to do otherwise.
Yeah, and there had been a lot of maintenance done before the town obtained it, and since the town obtained it, just to keep the building standing and secure, that weren't necessarily done in a restorative manner. So it was a decision to rehabilitate, definitely made the most sense and was considered by the town board and the Historic Preservation Board when this project began.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. Further discussion? Other items that we didn't get, I think we covered the agenda. Anything to add? And we could accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.